On this occasion, we're going deep on something, well, pretty essential to life. The global water crisis.
It's a big one, that's for sure.
We've got reports, essays, even a YouTube video where a guy drinks purified sewage, all to give you the most fascinating, multifaceted view of this whole challenge.
Sounds thorough.
We'll be covering how water use has changed over time, inequalities in access, the impact of population growth, climate change, and of course what innovations are giving us some hope.
It's definitely a complex issue, but understanding the layers can help us see where we fit in.
Okay, so back to basics. How do we go from ancient civilizations worshiping rivers to stressing about turning the tap off while brushing our teeth?
Well, for a long time, water probably felt infinite, right? Think about it. Civilizations were literally built around rivers. The Nile, for example.
Well, like the lifeblood.
Exactly. But then everything changed with the Industrial Revolution. Demands went way up, and we started tapping into groundwater, big time.
Which brings us to that wild fact from the video. We've pumped so much groundwater that it's shifted the Earth axis by 80 centimeters.
80 centimeters. It's wild.
Enough to make you think twice about how much water you use, huh?
Yeah, definitely makes you realize the impact we have. We take water for granted, but it's a powerful force, literally shaping our planet.
So it's not just about having enough water. It's about managing it responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
And something our sources made clear is that access to clean water is, well, not equal at all.
Nope, not at all. And the UN recognized this back in 2010, declaring access to water a human right. But the reality is it's complicated.
Right.
You've got regions like sub-Saharan Africa facing physical water scarcity, simply not enough water to go around.
Yeah.
But then even in places with plenty of water, like developed countries, you have economic scarcity. People can't afford it, or the infrastructure to get it to them just isn't there.
Two sides of the same coin, both leading to, well, serious hardship. And then there's the political side of things.
Yeah.
I mean, history's full of conflict over water, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Look at the Tigris-Euphrates Basin or the Nile River. When water is scarce, things get tense. Countries sharing a resource have to work together, which, as we've seen, can be tricky.
It's a good reminder that water isn't just a scientific or environmental issue. It's social and political, too. And then you add climate change and population growth into the mix.
And that's where things get really concerning. Climate change is already messing with rainfall patterns, making droughts and floods more frequent and intense. And as the global population keeps growing, the demand for water will just keep rising.
The reports we looked at said that by 2050, over half the world population could face severe water scarcity.
It's a staggering number.
That's a lot of thirsty people. And it's not just about drinking water, right? We need it for agriculture, industry, keeping ecosystems healthy.
It's essential for pretty much everything.
There was a point in the essay that really struck me. We need to shift from seeing water as just for human use to recognizing its value to the whole planet.
Moving from that human-centered view to, well, a more ecocentric one. Recognizing that ecosystems need clean water to thrive and that those ecosystems ultimately support us too.
It's all connected.
Exactly. And if we disrupt that delicate balance, we disrupt everything. So, yeah, it's not enough to just talk about saving water. We need to change how we think about it, how we value it.
So we've laid out the problem. Scarcity, inequality, climate change, and this whole mindset that needs a major overhaul. Sounds pretty dire. But is there any reason for hope? What are experts saying about solutions?
Well, the good news is that a lot of brilliant people are working on this, and some of the solutions are pretty incredible. Take Singapore's New Water Project, for instance.
Oh, yeah, the one where they're making drinking water out of sewage?
Yeah.
That video was something.
It's a perfect example of innovation born out of necessity. Singapore faces intense water stress, so they developed the system to treat wastewater to really high standards. And get this, it now meets 40% of their water needs.
Wow, 40%, that's huge.
It is, and it shows that we can get creative when we have to.
I'm all for saving water, but I'm not sure I could down a glass of it like that guy in the video. But it does show what's possible.
For sure. And while not every solution will be that drastic, it shows what happens when we rethink our relationship with water.
So technology plays a role, but can't be the only answer, right? What about our behavior? What can individuals actually do to make a difference?
There are so many things. Simple things like shorter showers, fixing leaky faucets, choosing water-efficient appliances. They all add up.
I'm definitely guilty of letting the water run while brushing my teeth. Need to work on that. But what about bigger changes, like in how our food is grown or the clothes we buy? Does that stuff really matter?
It absolutely matters. Agriculture is a huge water consumer, so supporting sustainable farming practices is key. And buying less stuff in general, especially clothes, can really reduce the water footprint of all that manufacturing.
So it's about being a conscious consumer, making choices that support companies that are thinking about water. But even if we all do our part, individual actions can only go so far, right? What about government policy?
Oh, it's crucial. We need policies that promote water conservation, protect our water sources, and make sure everyone has access. That means investing in infrastructure, regulating industries, working with other countries to manage shared water resources.
Sounds like a lot.
It is, but it's essential.
So it's a multi-pronged approach. Technology, individual behavior change, and strong policies.
Yeah.
It's a lot to tackle. But before we get overwhelmed, maybe we should shift gears and talk about some of the specific solutions being developed around the world.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's dive into some of the most innovative and promising approaches. From high-tech water treatment plants to those ancient water harvesting techniques that are making a comeback. One area that I find really exciting is the development of these decentralized water systems.
Decentral, so not those big centralized treatment plants.
Exactly. Instead of those huge plants and long pipelines, you have these smaller, localized treatment units. Makes more sense in a lot of ways.
Yeah, especially for remote communities or places without much infrastructure.
Right. And they can be tailored to specific needs using technologies like membrane filtration, UV disinfection, things like that. Plus, they're often more energy efficient and resilient to disruptions, which is a big deal.
It's like a more community-based approach to water management, empowering people to take control of their own water.
That's a big part of it, yeah. And there are some amazing examples of this happening around the world. Remember that village in India from the video? They revived an ancient rainwater harvesting system, and now they're totally self-sufficient.
I do. It's like they took this old wisdom and made it work for today.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what other ancient techniques we could be using,
Definitely. Sometimes the best solutions are the ones that have been around for centuries.
Right.
But we're also seeing amazing things with new technology, like desalination, for example.
Desalination. So
Yes.
turning salt water into fresh water. Isn't that really expensive and uses a ton of energy?
It can be, yeah. But the technology is getting better all the time, and the costs are coming down. And for places with serious water scarcity, especially coastal regions, it can be a real option.
I guess the key is doing it sustainably, though, right? Can't just suck up all the ocean water without thinking about the impacts.
You got it. There are definitely concerns about the brine discharge and what it does to marine ecosystems. So it's all about responsible development and using it strategically, not as the only solution, but as part of a bigger plan.
It's that systems thinking again.
Exactly. And that includes looking at demand, not just supply. Conservation isn't just about fixing leaks. It's about how we use water in the first place.
So being aware of our water footprint, the amount of water that goes into everything we buy and use.
Exactly. Every single thing from food to clothes to electronics has a water footprint. And by making smart choices, we can really lower our impact.
It's crazy. I read this report about virtual water recently. Basically, all the hidden water that goes into making stuff. It's wild how much water goes into something as simple as a cotton t-shirt.
It really is. And that's why it's so important to support companies that are thinking about water in their supply chains, the ones that are actively trying to reduce their impact.
Speaking of how we think about water, that essay we read, it argued that we need a totally new perspective. Not just conserving it, but actually respecting its role in the whole ecosystem.
Oh, absolutely. We have to move beyond just seeing water as a resource for humans. Recognize that it has value in and of itself, to the environment, to all living things.
I feel like a lot of indigenous cultures have always understood that interconnectedness. It's not just something we use, it's something we're a part of.
So true. And we need to bring that kind of thinking into our water management practices. That means protecting rivers and wetlands, not just for the water they provide us, but because they're vital ecosystems in their own right.
And that's where things like policy and regulations come in again, right? We need strong rules to protect our water from pollution and overuse.
We absolutely do. Policies that incentivize conservation and reward businesses that are doing things the right way.
Create a system where protecting water also makes economic sense, right? Win-win. But How do we actually make all these changes happen? Sometimes it feels so overwhelming, like it's all on governments and big corporations.
They definitely have a huge responsibility, but individual action is important too. Don't underestimate what you can do.
So what can everyday people do? Besides the obvious things like taking shorter showers and fixing leaks, I mean.
Well, you can support organizations that are working on these issues. You can volunteer in your community to restore local waterways. You can educate yourself and talk to others about these challenges. And honestly, never underestimate the power of making your voice heard. Contact your elected officials, push for policies that prioritize water conservation and access for everyone.
So it's not just about turning off the tap, it's about speaking up.
It's about using our voices, our choices, our actions to create a world where water is valued and protected for everyone.
Wow, we've really gone deep on this one, haven't we? From the history of water use to that mind-blowing tech they're developing.
It's amazing what they're doing.
It really hits you that this water crisis isn't just one problem. It's like a million things all tangled up together.
Exactly. You've got population growth, you've got climate change, economic inequality. Heck, we even need to rethink how we see water in the first place.
Like we said, it's all connected. We can't just keep slapping a Band-Aid on this. We need a totally new way of thinking about it.
And that's where systems thinking comes in, right? It's not just about finding more water. It's about understanding the whole cycle, the whole picture, and how everything we do impacts it.
We've seen some pretty amazing solutions out there, that's for sure. Like turning sewage into drinking water. Who would have thought?
It's incredible. And those old school water harvesting techniques making a comeback.
Yeah, it's inspiring to see.
It really is. But technology can only take us so far. We have to change our behavior too.
Right. Being more mindful, thinking about our water footprint, supporting companies that are, doing things the right way.
Exactly. And pushing for policies that actually protect our water.
It's a lot. But I have to say, I'm feeling hopeful. There are so many people working on this.
There really are. It feels like there's a real movement happening, individuals, communities, organizations, all coming together to find solutions.
And that brings us back to you, our amazing listeners. But now we want to hear from you.
What parts really resonated with you? What questions are you still wrestling with?
What actions are you going to take in your own life, in your community? How are you going to be a part of the solution?
Because at the end of the day, this is a global crisis, sure, but it's also incredibly personal.
It affects all of us, and every single one of us has a role to play.